Welcome back to another episode of Capes and Tights, a comic book and pulp culture podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. We were set, we were recording, we were ready to go with Ben Goldsmith, a second place comic, hitting shelves, issue 2 hitting shelves this week when some emergency came up in Ben's family. And so we had to stop, and everything is going to be fine on his side. Don't worry about that. We had to stop recording and reschedule. So no issues there. Ben will be back. We'll talk about his comic book. It will be fun. Cannot wait. Looking forward to those episodes. But this time around, we're going to go back in the rewind machine again. And we are going to do an episode that was on the former podcast we used to do called The Main State of Mind. And this episode featured myself and Paul Eaton of Galactic Comics and Collectibles on Hammond Street in Bangor, where we talked our favorite superpowers. Yes, we talked our favorite superpowers. So check out this episode. Jump on the rewind machine and go back and talk comic books with me and Paul on from Galactic Comics and Collectibles in Bangor, Maine, here on Capes and Tights. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at Capes and Tights Podcast, Twitter at Capes Tights Pod, capesandtights.com, as well as follow us, subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff on Apple, Spotify, and all your major podcasting platforms. But here you go. Enjoy. Paul and I nerding out over our favorite superpowers here on Capes and Tights. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Terrific. How's it going, Justin?
Excellent. Long time no see.
It has been ages. Like literally an hour. I think.
An hour? It was so funny because we were watching that movie at Queen City Cinema Club, and I got that message from you. It says short boxes. And it's funny because my mom's in town, so I haven't been I was working on that project, moving things from long boxes to short boxes, and you ran out of short boxes. So I was like, okay, I still need to do this, but it wasn't like on the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
So when I got home, I looked through my comic books, I entered some into my database, and I put them away. Put them to the side. And I didn't even think about the fact that I didn't get short boxes from you. And it wasn't until you messaged me to let me know that I forgot short boxes. And I'm like, we're downtown. And I'm like, hey, Galactic Comics isn't that far away. So maybe we should swing up and get my short boxes. Because if I don't get them now, I'm working tomorrow. I'm working Saturday. You're closed. I won't get them until next week. So if I want to do anything with my comic books between now and next Wednesday, I need to get them now.
You got to get them. Well, it's funny because I came in tonight specifically to try to start doing stock stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I don't know, last night I had like boxes everywhere.
Everywhere.
It was, like chaotic how much stuff came in. And I like turned to look and I saw the short boxes in the corner. I'm like, oh,
I got to stop buying from you in bulk though, because if I buy 5 or 6 of them, you don't put them together for me. Those things are a pain in the ass to put together.
Those are still so much easier than card ones. Card boxes, the 4-slot card boxes take like 10 men, a boy, and a family of watching to try to get those things together. You
gotta hire an engineer to come put them together. But like, it's funny because they go together obviously perfectly because you need to make sure that they fold it the right way and all that stuff. But then they're perforated.
Yeah.
But they're not.
No.
They're rip the side off to fold them in. They're not perforated. So you have to use a knife to kind of cut the perforation open. And those are a pain. And so finally I got them together. I have all of them together now. And it won't be a couple of weeks going to your shop before I have no more space.
It'll be time for more boxes. Well, it's funny because Jess that works here for me is like, nope, no boxes. I will not do boxes. I'm like, come on, she does. I mean, she's amazing. She does everything, but she's like, nope.
She won't.
She's like, I'm not even going to try to do them. I've watched you do them. Nope. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I'm on box duty.
Oh, I thought your manager was messaging me.
Was that Scotty? Was that a Scotty sticker on the back of the phone?
Yeah, it's from his website. It's the Scotty. And when I ordered something online, he sent it to me.
That's awesome.
Well, he didn't send it to me. Probably some minion of his sent it to me. He starts sending these packages. I say minion. I think it's his wife. So I think his wife is the person who sends things out.
He sent it to me exclusively himself. Scotty Young was licking the envelope.
I texted or messaged Ben, or Ben Bishop on his Facebook page. I've commented, I should say, about how I should start signing over my direct deposit at work to him because I buy so much stuff from him. I'm just glad that Scotty Young doesn't have some sort of fan club subscription service or doesn't release things or put things up on auction as much as Ben does, because I would be poor with that.
It'd be bad.
Because it's bad.
Yeah.
So at least
Galactic
Ben
Comics
is like,
would have gone under by now.
Yes. It's Galactic Comics crossed off. It's Scotty Young Comics, and all you do is sell Scotty Young stuff.
It's not even for sale. No, it's just for people to look at. It's like going into a museum. It's all mine. I'm not giving it to you. It's not out.
We'd be the first people to open a Scotty Young museum in Bangor, Maine, some obscure location he's never been to. It's like one of those weird things that he's like, why is there a Scotty Young museum in Bangor? It's just, well, two obsessed people in Bangor just had a lot of stuff, and they thought, you know what? We could do that if you got a new shop at some point.
People come and see this.
Excess space at a new shop. If you ever get a new shop, and you could like put it like one room that's just Scotty Young stuff that you can't buy. Museum. It's just museum. It's just stuff that you can see, and you know, I've got quite a few stuff, posters.
Yeah, I think we can stock this. I'd be curious how many people would want to go in, maybe out of curiosity, because I mean, we get a lot of fan people, and comic fans that still don't know who Scotty Young is. If you and I are in here talking, they're like, who? Because we're so die hard.
Yeah.
Would they be like, tell you what, I'll give you $5 to go see what the hell this room is about?
Why is this guy drives these little children versions of Spider-Man? I don't understand it.
Why do you two own hundreds of them?
Well, you can put the little figurines in it, and
yeah, we got the mini statues I've got.
Yeah, prints.
Yeah, we can
comic books. We got sign stuff. We got CGC stuff. We've got all kinds of stuff. Once if we build it, maybe he will come. Is that how it works? Like what's that movie?
Probably come to file a restraining order against us.
Or some sort of like, excuse me, I need some compensation for this. Like, you're making money off of my hard work.
You can't charge people to look at all my stuff.
But our superpowers are being Scotty Young fans, right? That's the only superpowers we need.
Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, realistically, I could mediocrely stop hockey pucks. Does that count?
And yeah, that's about it. I mean, let's see. You're not play hockey that much anymore, so you're not a superpower hockey player.
Gone. Completely gone.
Your superpower is owning a comic book store while also having a full-time job somewhere else. How about that?
Okay, I'll take that.
And not quitting that job. Back to reality, or back to more fun things, and that's
yes, the good stuff.
Superpowers. So normally, Paul and I talk like comic book, specifically in a comic book about a specific character or a book cover or an artist or a writer or something along those lines. But we thought, I just did one a couple weeks ago with Josh Moulton with talking about our top 10 favorite sequels are better than the original movies. But there wasn't a lot to talk about, or there was this like wanting to change it up a little bit and just do like top 10 total. And that we each picked 5. We also, normally we would not know each other's 5 and there'd be some crossover, but this one's, we're going to do our top 10 favorite superpowers. But we both know the list really, and we'll go back and forth and just talk about it. Really, they're all together. Like, I like all the ones you have, you like all the ones I have, and we're just talking about superpowers in general and what cool powers are out there. And we'll give some examples of maybe some characters that have those. Some of the names you might not know. Like, if you actually say the name, you're like, what does that even mean? So I'll explain some of the names I have, and just talk about superpowers in general. And there's some cool things. And then like, when it's funny because my mom was just having a conversation with us that my cousin and her were in a car years ago driving, and there was some time that they just didn't know what to talk about. And one of the things they talked about, well, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Yep. It's a great topic.
It is. And it's like, well, there's some cool reasons why. And there's also some funny things that she mentioned too, that when someone picks something and you laugh because you're like, why would you want that superpower? So not only is there superpowers you really like, there's also some superpowers out there that are like stupid to my thought.
Right.
So there is one or two on there that I like and they're cool because of the way the characters work, but there's some also like, I don't think I'd want that personally. Like, I don't think that's a power that I would like to have. There are a few on here would be like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have. There's some that I'm like, they're cool powers, but they wouldn't be constructive to me. They wouldn't make my life that much better having that power. We would just be to have those power.
And can you imagine living with some of this stuff? Like,
yes.
The day in and day outs of it, which I think is one of my favorite parts of when you see superheroes using the powers in their everyday life for just the random stuff they're doing. I love that when they tie in the little ones. As bad as the Fantastic Four movie was, the first one. But when Johnny Storm's holding the popcorn in his hand, and it's like, hey, if you can do that, that's cool.
Well, and that's like, so I think what this topic came up on was I was thinking about, my wife and I either started watching or I was planning to watch after we finished another TV show, watching Heroes over again.
Yeah.
the NBC show. And the coolest thing I like about the Heroes show is that they're got superpowers, so they're not superheroes. They call the show's called Heroes, but they're not like, it wasn't like Paul Eaton got the ability to fly and you're now, Wonder Man.
Right.
You're just Paul Eaton that can fly.
Right.
You wouldn't
How would it
immediately
be?
go have a costume.
Yeah, I'm not going to immediately go and slap some spandex on. Start bombing around the city.
In all likelihood, most of us.
No one wants that.
Superpower.
No one wants that.
Most likely, if we all got some of us got superpowers, we'd quietly have the superpowers and use them to our advantage to better our lives. There'll be a couple people who use it for evil, and then there's other people who would want to be heroes. And it doesn't mean that just because you have a superpower doesn't mean you have to be a hero. And that's something that I think like things like Jessica Jones, for example, brings to mind in Marvel. That like, some of those things are just kind of cool because they don't have to be super. Same thing with heroes, and that's one of the reasons why I think I got this topic on mine was that heroes people. Like Hero on the show, he always says use your powers for good. Doesn't mean you can't use your powers for your own personal gain. It's like you have to use it for good only, and that's to save people, and that's the only way you can use your powers. So I think some of these things I'd use in my personal life, just in a normal, just doing regular life
every day. Everyday ease.
So let's start with one. I'll start with one right now. We'll just get right into it. And one of the things I would use is teleportation. Because teleportation would be easy. I'd be like, oh crap, I forgot to get my short boxes from Paul. Bam, I'm at Galactic Comics. I grab my boxes. I go home. It wasn't a personal benefit. It wasn't like I was trying to better my life, trying to win the lottery, trying to steal things or whatever. It was just literally like, I don't want to take the time to drive from Orrington over to Bangor, grab some short boxes, probably talk to you guys for too long. You probably convinced me to buy another comic book.
At least one.
Yeah. And so then I would, if you could just be like, bam, there and back, that it would be a personal gain, but not really furthering my life. It's just making my life easier, if that makes any sense. So
absolutely,
teleportation really obviously gives your own explanation or explains itself. It's moving from point A to point B. But is teleportation also bending space and time? So teleportation, does that also include traveling through time?
Well, because you have a lot of different ways of teleporting, right? Like there's also like I'm thinking of magic that actually travels through a layer of hell when she teleports. So, you have all of these weird different versions of it. I personally think my favorite teleportation is Nightcrawler.
Yes.
And I just love the idea, but it's in line of sight.
Yes.
And in one of the books I read, they talked about how exhausting it is for him because to him, he's literally running. But it's him popping up as far as he can see, and he has to do it carefully because if he pops up in the wrong spot, he can land inside something. Like, moving vehicle truck, I know that, I can land it, but if the truck's full of stuff, he can land inside something and it would kill it.
Yes.
So,
and that would be my mom. My mom was talking about that would be her power is teleportation, but where her thought was you can't just touch her. Like if yours is teleportation, I was at Galactic and you're like, I got to run home for a quick second, and you teleport home. I couldn't touch you and teleport with you. You would have had to touch me. You would have had to take your bare hand and hold on to my hand and teleport me. I couldn't just be like, oh crap, and hold on to you and go.
Right. And you'd almost have I feel like some of them can have the mental thought of it that you have to think I am taking you or this with me to go. I have to zone in on this and do it. But yeah, teleportation would be extremely useful because I love going on trips. I love exploring, but it's always when you get somewhere, the drive home is like murder. Like I don't want to go home now. Like, we came 3 hours and I got to drive 3 hours back.
Yes. And if you mentioned Nightcrawler, so there's Nightcrawler does it. I have some examples like Magic. You mentioned Cloak. Is one of them. Also Blink. But there's definitely some big ones in Marvel and some things. But I think there is two different types, like you mentioned. Just the idea of being able to go anywhere or to where you can see. Both of them would be cool. Anywhere would allow you to also travel more. How many people in this world don't see a lot of what goes on in this world because they can't actually travel? So if you had the power to actually just go to the Grand Canyon for tonight for dinner, my wife and I went on a date tonight. We could have gone to the Grand Canyon and had a picnic at the Grand Canyon and then teleported back. Again, personal gain because we're ease of use in doing something, but we're not teleporting myself into a bank and teleporting myself out with $1 million in cash.
Right.
So there is
that's
that
where you have to have those morals to stick with it. And then how many people would use them for, for evil, but for that wrong personal gain. And then I guess how much more, it's like, I feel like it's common in Invisible Man stories where the person crosses the line because they realize they can. So how much danger would there be in you going, oh man, it would be really easy to, you know what I mean? Every person would have to determine where that line is. Consignment. Sorry, we're in a working comic store.
No, you're good. Absolutely. I love that part about this. You know, I wish you had the ability to take time to do it, because obviously it's easier for you. But I love the fact that you have Will there to help you, and he has to ask you questions. You've answered the phone before on one of our podcasts. It's been great.
Yep. Yeah, we've had that. We've had people knocking on the door. Yep. Yeah, we're ongoing.
But there are definitely powers. Like teleportation is one of those ones that you 100% could use for negative or for your own personal gain. Financially, you could change and alter your life in very grateful or beneficial things to yourself with teleportation. Absolutely. But there are also ones that are just happen to be, you can benefit your life, but it's not something you can't further your life, if that makes any sense. So we'll get to some of those too, where it's like there's nothing you can do to make personal gain by using this power. There's just some of them that you can use to keep going, if that makes any sense. But so teleportation is my first one. Again, these will also not be in any specific order. It's not like this is my favorite one and it's not my least favorite one. This is just 10 powers we like. And so Paul can actually talk about one of the ones that he picked off the list.
So I feel like this is an obvious one that I think, like you said, if you're having a conversation with someone, there's always going to be at least one person that can say it is flight, right? Because flying is just cool. Like, and I remember, it was in a comic series. They talked about that you have to fly because heroes fly. Mm-hmm. You know, part of being a hero is they fly. So, you know, how cool would it be? And then you have like a lot of different ideas to flight, right? Like, you know, can you only fly at your pace? Mm-hmm. You know, as fast as you can possibly go. You running is as fast as you can fly, or is this like Superman flight? Yes. Where you're just like, bam, you know, because that's really, in some respects, if you're thinking of it, that's 2 powers, because now you're involving super speed.
Yes.
You know, but if you're talking about just enjoyable, amazing powers, flight has got to be up there. I remember numerous books Storm points out about how she flies every day because that is her personal enjoyment. That's her time, and she goes out and flies. As long as you can avoid aircraft and other things.
Well, there's also different types of weighing how to fly. It's not just specifically, you mentioned how fast you fly, but there's also ones that are like, Storm doesn't fly because she can fly as her power, if that makes any sense. She flies because she manipulates the weather to allow her to fly. Is it Will again?
Yeah, it's Will. Yeah, so C5 is a consigner.
It's not in the register.
Oh, just put it through as a regular item and just jot it down for me. Okay.
You and your new high-tech technology, you don't actually have things registered in there. Come on.
There's still stuff I'm finding that need barcode creation.
We just got banging out one weekend, Sunday through Wednesday. We just sit there, we just all through and bang everything out.
There was so much stuff I thought I had, and then I find randomly throughout the store that I'm like, man, I know I did this wall. Yeah. Oh, I forgot this shelf that was there. And now all of a sudden you're finding it like, oh, crap.
Well, I love when I go out there and I buy on a Wednesday, I buy some comics and I grab one out of the old back indie stock, and you're like, crap, this is not in the computer system. And I'm just like, there's one right here. I have a current indie. You can just scan that one. You're like, oh yeah.
Quick scan it. Yeah, quick scan. Yeah, because it's funny because I stop. I'm like hitting them up and then I'm like, the dark times.
Oh my gosh, from my past. But yeah, like a Storm uses the weather, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she uses wind currents to lift herself.
And there's other characters, like we were talking about, like flight, like it's not flight, but like people with weather, like ice powers, Iceman, those people kind of like you can create your own bridge. It's not flying, but it's like you can travel yourself from point out. Yes. There's people like Magneto who use the world's magnetism to do that. And we'll talk, obviously we'll talk about that later potentially. And, but yeah, there's that you don't just have to have the superpower to fly. And that's why a lot of superheroes fly. It's because of the fact that other powers can make you fly, if that makes any sense. But that's one of the ones that flight is also one of the. But is there anybody who just flies? I mean, is there one off the top of your head that their specific power is literally just flight?
Not off the top of my head. I bet there was at some point.
Yes. So
I bet there was.
But here's my question too, and Taylor, my wife.
Okay, so no, because even Angel has extra abilities because he has his wings.
Yes.
But even he still has. There's some talk about how his bone density is lighter, which makes him stronger.
Yeah.
So, because he's technically built like a bird, I guess. So,
and could you consider someone like Iron Man have the quote unquote power of flight because of his suit?
Flight, which he does, but it's all the technology, right?
Correct.
But and that is, like we just watched the first Iron Man movie again, the family and I, and man, to see him flying that looks so cool.
Yes.
Like, man, that would be awesome to be in there. But then there's a terrifying point that you're not flying, the suit's flying.
Yes.
So, like, when he first is creating it and he gets up too high, and all of a sudden he's not, like, that's terrifying because you're relying on that technology still. It's not just you. You don't have the ability to fly due to a certain power you have. That's the suit flying, and you just hope it keeps working.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. So that's one of those ones I said that's like really cool. It's like flight's a power that a lot of superheroes have, but is it not specifically that they have flight as their only power? So if you see something, is flight one of those ones you would pick? Because it's like a lot of those people are a secondary power, if that makes any sense. Like Superman's power isn't flight; it's flight on top of other things. Captain Marvel's is flight on top of everything. And those are the three that I wrote down. But
I feel like flight would be super, super self-enjoyable. Like. Just to know, and I mean, it's convenient, right? I got to go to work. Oh, you skip traffic, you skip roadways. You're just there in a straight line. But also the enjoyment factor of it is amazing.
Put in that category
until everyone could fly.
Correct.
and then it's like going to the grocery store. Like, oh, great, it's Walmart again.
Isn't that the Marvel?
I'm in the air and so is everyone.
Marvel's comic book, where everybody has the ability to have powers except for one non-super powered human being. The one everybody has powers, it would seem like a less like powers mean anything.
Right.
That makes sense.
It's your everyday.
Correct. And so flight would be one of those ones that you could benefit yourself in a way to make your life easier. But really, what could you use with just specifically flight to over help yourself? You can't rob a bank with flight. You can't.
I mean, besides maybe an escape. But then if you're the only person that can fly, it's pretty obvious who it was.
Correct. So that's my thought is like there's something you can't like with teleportation. I can teleport myself if you can teleport anywhere. You just think about the place and you can go there. You can teleport in yourself into a vault and teleport yourself out. You could teleport yourself, into a grocery store in the middle of the night, grab a loaf of bread and teleport yourself. So you can steal very easily with teleportation, but with flight you really couldn't do a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get far with much of it. I think it would be an enjoyable power. And realistically, if it doesn't, it's funny because, like you said, most of these people that fly have extra abilities. Yes. Where if flight would be kind of hard to even use in any heroic sense, if that's all you have, because you're still only as strong as you are.
Yeah.
So burning building scenario, and you're trying to rescue someone, they better not weigh more than you can carry, or you're gonna have a problem.
And you can't use adrenaline anymore because after a while, doing it over or like the first or second time you get flight. If I get flight tonight. And I'm driving home and someone's car is on fire, I probably could get the adrenaline in my body to help me not think about the weight and do it quickly. But if you do it every day, the adrenaline's going to eventually go away to the point where things are just way. Yeah. So yes, you're right. So you would have to have super strength and the same thing. And the same thing, I guess we'll go with my next power, which was regeneration, is the same thing. So regeneration, if you look at someone like Wolverine, for an example, and look at his powers in the Marvel Encyclopedia, one of his powers is delayed aging. But I think that goes along with regeneration.
Regeneration, because regeneration is causing the delayed aging.
Correct. But also, if you look at the history of comic books, every superhero has delayed aging.
Well, there's been some writing that says that you're actually looking at their lives in a much shorter span.
But like the idea that like no one ever gets old. But so yes, your point with the shorter span is like someone like Wolverine has lived many years, and they've shown that in the books.
Since like before the Civil War.
Yes.
They've gone back to in a lot of the storylines.
And the regeneration again, for anybody who doesn't know, obviously flight was pretty self-explanatory. Teleportation is pretty self-explanatory. Regeneration is regeneration would just be like if you lose an arm, you'll regrow it.
Like Deadpool can just grow it back.
Deadpool, Wolverine were two of the big ones that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can just take bullet holes and you just you basically live forever.
Which we talked about. I actually had this conversation at work today about your hero powers. What would you choose and this and that? And to me, that'd be almost more of a curse because you're going to outlive everyone. Mm-hmm. You're going to outlive your spouse. You're going to outlive your children. You're going to outlive your grandchildren. Like it is such an unnatural thing that while so many people can say, oh, I'd want that. I'd want to, you know, have regeneration or immortality or live forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a curse. Like look at characters in books that I feel like they're good, like Ra's al Ghul in the DC universe. He uses it through other means, through the Lazarus Pit, but it's made him insane, right? He's evil. And I would think that realistically it would drive you insane. And some you could argue that Wolverine's insane, right? I mean, he has this berserker rage. He has numerous powers with the regenerativeness. But there'd be a lot there that would make you, I think, eventually lose your mind. Like,
Correct.
You can't die. Like,
and so the other question that comes, that the conversation I've had with people about regeneration is, do you feel pain? And so that I think that's a secondary thing. I think a lot of these people do. Like Wolverine, for example, I don't think he feels as much pain as you and I would feel, but I feel like he still feels the bullets hitting him.
There was a really good book I read with Wolverine that he talked about the idea of, have you ever imagined have you ever grown back an eyeball? Like, have you ever had like his muscles tear, and then if they heal because he's in combat still, they're not healing properly.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to rip the muscles to have them reheal again. You know, people don't grow back livers and kidneys and stuff from being shot, or, you know, grow back skin from being burned, or feeling nerves coming back to life. Like, it's a horror scene, which is something I had thought that it put a huge light on what Wolverine's life was like. That it's not just, oh, haha, I got shot. Like, it hurts. And it doesn't always re-heal right. Like a normal human would heal from this in months. You would go through physical therapy. You would, you know, do all these things. And his is happening at a rapid rate. So it's not always right, and it has to be fixed. Like,
so it would be cool to have, because of the fact that you got a car accident or you fell, or like maybe I would have continued skateboarding as a kid if I had regeneration. So if I broke my leg, it would hurt, but it would heal. Exactly. And so those kind of things are cool. In my opinion, it would be, like I said, again, helpful to your life, to make your life a little bit easier. But if you felt, in my opinion, if it's like one of those things that if I had to say, you can pick from these 5 powers, I'm some sort of, person who can grant you a wish, but regeneration comes with regeneration with pain. And not to harp on it, I probably will talk a few more times about Heroes, but the cheerleader on Heroes doesn't feel pain, and that to me was like, well, then it's different altogether.
That's like an additional thing there.
Then you can fly. I could jump out of a 10-story building and hit the floor and just be like, cool,
who cares?
I'm good. Walk up, put my arm back in place, and I can walk to work. You could stick your hand in a boiling pot of water, corn on the cob, and grab your corn on the cob and eat it. And it's, you know, you can burn the roof of your mouth. And
the hero thing becomes a lot easier. Correct. Because sure, you can charge into a burning building, you can charge into a, you know, shooting or someone's shooting scene, any of these things, because you're not going to feel it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think with Regeneration, I think you could develop that hero sense, because you know that someone else can't heal from this and you can. It would be selfish almost to not take that upon yourself, which I think in Wolverine's characters, when he does a lot, and they talk about that, he does this because he knows he can survive it.
Yes.
But it's terrible to a degree. It's awful. Like you said, if there's no pain involved, yeah, sure.
Exactly, because it makes it a lot easier on what you can do, what you can't do. But I also feel like how long would the pain last? Because if I get a cut on your hand and then it doesn't hurt unless you wash your hands, and then it hurts because you get soap in it or you use hand sanitizer or something like that, but it hurts initially. So then maybe a little bit like the middle ground thing is the fact that it hurts, but it doesn't hurt for long. So when I then have gone and done more skateboarding in my life, got up skateboard, oh crap, broke my leg, it hurts for 10-15 minutes and then it's rehealed and it's gone, then I get back on the skateboard and do it again, then hell yeah, that's fine with me too, because that's like okay, I'll deal with the instant pain for a time being. But if I had to feel the pain of having a broken leg and having it feel like it's 6 weeks of healing through that whole time, then I'd still like, even if it healed and I could walk on it, but I had some residual pain, it still makes me think twice about doing some things, even though I can regenerate.
Right. Then knowing it's a very short thing.
Yes.
Yep. So my next power I've got down is cosmic absorption. So for those that might not know, that's basically Captain Marvel. It's the ability to absorb energy at a cosmic level. So it's every kind of form of energy there is, really. You are absorbing it and then can reuse it to a degree, to whatever you can't say whatever you want, but it gives you flight because you are taking that energy and forcing yourself. If you want energy blasts, you can use that. It's cool to think that you're kind of limitless, right? Because there's always energy being out there, and no matter what, you're like a living battery that's always gaining it. So that would be an insane power. It'd make you so powerful. And then the question is with that power, are you a hero or are you a villain? You know what I mean? It'd be very easy to go either direction there, because who's going to stop you? I mean, realistically, you can prevent bullets from hitting you, and absorbing that energy, that telekinesis, or yeah. Oh, nice.
And it's funny because not, how long can we talk about? How long before we have to say spoiler alert for Endgame? It's been a couple of years, right? I don't have to say spoiler alert anymore.
Oh God, I would hope. If you haven't watched Endgame yet, shame on you.
And you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, very shame on you.
But like the idea that like all of a sudden I know where you see her coming from outer space, Captain Marvel for an example, using that cosmic energy to basically crash through Thanos' ship in Sanctuary. That to me was like, oh my God. But then it's like, yes, she's been absorbing this cosmic energy flying through outer space. Yes, that she would have the ability to do this. And she's
power
not
of all these suns that she's getting.
Correct. And it's not like Superman. With Superman is not cosmic, is he? He's just because he
only is powered by the our sun, by the yellow sun. So it's yes, but more limited than hers.
Yes.
Like I think if you put him and her in a fist fight, she's gonna win.
Obviously, she's also a woman, so she definitely can like deal with it a lot better than we can deal with it.
Yeah. Then I just don't like Superman anyway. And I know you don't.
Yeah. But yeah, so the cosmic one is pretty cool too, because again, that's another one that's like, I mean, can you just be on Earth and have cosmic? Can you just gain Earth's cosmic energy, or does it?
I mean, for what I've read in Captain Marvel, it seems like it, right? Because there's energy, throughout, and that cosmic level is the fact that it's not just I'm only powered by, like Bishop is powered by kinetic energy.
Yes.
So things that are hitting him, he absorbs. So you can't punch Bishop, because if you punch him, he's going to hit you back twice as hard.
Yeah.
But she's absorbing everything.
Yes.
So, realistically, you're being powered off of the heat from the Earth. You're being powered off the sun. You're being powered off wind energy. You're being powered off everything.
Yeah.
Everything is strengthening your body.
And I like that one better than you just having it. Because, I mean, I would think that, like, and I've never seen this in a comic book, because I don't read very many Captain Marvel comic books. I'm sorry. I have to admit.
I've read a fair amount,
and obviously there's a movie and stuff like that, but it hasn't been a lot about Captain Marvel in the world in general. Superman's been around for years, and they've talked about it for years. And obviously, I think the basic
everyone
knowledge
knows
that he
Superman.
has a lot of powers. He's from Krypton, the yellow sun of Earth powers, and yada. Would she deplete her energy, or would someone with cosmic energy be able to deplete their energy if they use a lot of it all at once and have to regain it? Or
I think
it's like a battery. So basically, a battery.
I think so. It's like a battery. You're only gonna have so much energy. Your body could only probably absorb so much, and then you're gonna come down. If you really are throwing it all out there in a fight, like in this scenario for Thanos. Yes. You're throwing it all out there in a fight. You're gonna get tired. You're gonna get worn out. You're gonna use all that, and then you gotta recharge it again. In Superman, you've seen him really get beaten down. He needs to get that solar energy back to repower and to heal.
That I like. So I like the idea that there's got to be, I feel like every superpower, again, I say this like it's we're having this like conversation that's going to end at the Smithsonian, but like I feel like if you're talking superpowers and we're having this conversation, you need to have some limitations to these powers. You can't just be absolutely. So if you go back to regeneration, you have to be able to feel pain. If you fly, you have to be able to fly as fast as you can run, potentially, or whatever, for as long as you can run. That's your power for flying. It's just you get to be in the air. And if you have cosmic energy, you have a limit to what you can absorb into your body.
Yeah.
And maybe you can train yourself to absorb more
over
time, because you're working out and using it and all that stuff. But also having those limitations, meaning that there's like a power doesn't make you invincible in a sense. Like you have to have some sort of limitations to these powers.
And the thing is if if you're in that scenario where you have that cosmic absorption ability and you're not facing supervillains, so it's just all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow with the ability to absorb essentially all energy.
Yes.
Are you ever going to run out of it, really? Until you like face something that's
yes.
Right. You know what I mean? You could get in there and fight Mike Tyson. You're not probably going to run out of energy.
Mm-mm.
You know, it's got to be.
Because you'd have that time to step back and absorb whatever energy is in the air right then.
Quickly. Yeah, yes. Very quickly. So it would be, it would take a lot to really wear you down.
But at least there is a limitation to it. So at least you can say,
right.
I'm not all powerful. I can.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's not all. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. So I guess in that one, I guess you couldn't. Again, you could use power to overpower someone, like overdo someone. But again, I feel like that one falls in that category that you can do personal gain to an extent, but you can't do.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you would become the most powerful person on Earth right now.
Correct.
With that ability,
you could intimidate people with your power
easily if you chose to. But you could end war if you wanted world peace. You become the world's nuclear bomb.
Yes.
To whichever political, whatever religious, whatever thing it is you want, who's going to stop you?
Because it wouldn't be potentially using the actual power to do that. You'd use the intimidation of being
the intimidation
able to use
of
the power,
which is a terrifying idea, right? That much power in a single person, know.
Correct.
Like what? That's one of those things where you
have it.
Yeah. That would be the terrifying thought is, if tomorrow morning one person woke up in the world with it, how would they use those powers?
Correct.
You know what I mean? What would it be? Is it a good person? Is it, that'd be that's a lot to put on a plate for someone.
And with any of these powers, I would hope it would be like the many Spider-Man reiterations that they've had of taking time to get to know how to use these, testing them on your own before you even tell anybody else what they are. You are able to test them and work through them and try to figure them out and learn on your own how to do it. And then you're like, oh crap, I could take over this world. Then they can make the decision later on in their lives if they want to take over the world.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, weird. So one of my next powers would be shape-shifting. Okay. Again, a little self-explanatory on that because you can shape-shift yourself. The question that I always have with this power is shape-shifting yourself into anything. Like if your molecules just move and I can turn into this microphone.
Are you Plastic Man or are you Mystique?
Yes. Or can you just change yourself into another human being or another living thing? So is it a mammal? Right. Can I change myself into something that has a heartbeat, something that moves? Or can I change myself into an inanimate object of sorts? I would think that my power, if I had to pick out of those questions, is shapeshifting into another human being. That would be one of my favorite powers out there. You can be anybody else you want to be. I think there should be some limitations to that. You have to have seen them either as on a picture, on TV, in person. You can't just
scroll.
Yes,
scroll powers.
So my list of examples are most of my examples are Marvel, Skrulls / and Mystique. Those are two ones that.
Do you not read a lot of DC?
No, not really. No.
Oh, okay.
Is there someone who shapeshifts in DC? I don't even know. If there's a DC character that shapeshifts themselves, can they shapeshift themselves into a good character like in a Marvel character?
Oh, wow.
Shapeshift themselves into a Marvel book. But change it anyway. But again, here's my other question about it is, if you shapeshift into someone else, if I shapeshifted into someone who can fly, can I fly?
This has been my question with Mystique a lot. Like Mystique, I find Mystique confusing. Where are the limitations here?
Yes.
Because sometimes you see her turn into like Wolverine and fight, like in the movie there, in the Sony movie, she fights Wolverine. Well, Wolverine is adamantium, he's hard. Like getting hit by him is like being hit by a bus to an average human being. So what are her powers? Where is that limitation? I assumed that just because you can look like a person, you couldn't fly just because that person could.
Yes.
Just because you look like a bodybuilder doesn't mean would you have the strength of a bodybuilder?
Yes.
Or is it just your mass shape-shifting to look like it?
Because you're shape-shifting yourself like that. I think that goes into the whole inanimate object. If I shape-shift myself into this can, like, I just feel like you shape-shifting in yourself to make people visually see you differently.
Think it's a can.
And I'm not going to spoil anything because there's a lot of it's still actively on TV with the new Loki show. There's again, I'm not giving away much, but if anybody doesn't want to give away anything on the show, spoiler alert here.
Spoiler alert.
Is that he explains the difference between the way he does his magic in the idea of showing, like manipulating himself or multiplying himself.
Right, multiplying versus
like what people can projection to what they see and what it actually is. And I think that you're basically, this could be two things. Are you projecting yourself to someone else as someone different? Or are you actually changing your molecules into someone else? So is the shape shifting just making you, is shape shifting as simple as acting like, could I walk into your house as Paul Eaton and have your wife go hi, but when I speak, do I speak like you? Do I speak like me?
Shapeshifting is so confusing to me.
Yes.
Like, because in like Harry Potter realm, right? Like,
yes,
they change shape because of the potion they take, but they still sound like themselves. You know, are you able to actually mimic someone's vocal cords be the same?
Well, so I guess it would
like
be,
them?
right? If you
what happens
yourself into that person, you're shapeshifting every molecule of your body. And again, that would go down to, are you only shapeshifting the outside of your body?
Are you Mystique in the Sony movies where she's like essentially naked? Or are you Mystique in the comics where she always has this white thing on, but then somehow it's changed into someone else's clothes?
Correct.
What are you changing? Mastermind is actually a telepath, is entering your mind so that you're seeing
something else.
The person look differently. Like it's a projection, it's entering someone's mind and changing what they are actually seeing versus a physical change. Shapeshifting is very confusing to me, and I've never quite. And it's almost a power. It's like time travel. I don't like because it leads to so many random questions.
Correct.
That I feel like writers have become very gray about it.
Yes, but I think every one of our superpowers has that conversation to have about can you do this? Every single one. Of them. If you fly, how fast can you fly? If you regenerate, do you feel pain? I think shapeshifting, but it has a couple more questions about it, and that's
I think that is one of the largest gray areas there are.
And I think shapeshifting would be one of those powers that if you could choose a power, be someone would want to do it to create evil, to do bad things, to personally gain for themselves.
How are you going to do this that is actually a beneficial, useful thing for other people, for the world? Unless you're going to children's hospitals and transforming into their favorite heroes.
Correct.
For kids, what else can you do with that that's going to be a benefit that isn't just manipulating someone? Because I can't think of there's Morph in X-Men, but even there's some weird stuff.
Think about it. The characters that I wrote down were Skrulls again, other than the movie right now. They seem like they're not villains in the movies right now, which we'll get to.
I don't figure that out. They should be villains, but that's a whole.
But there's also Mystique, who is mostly a villain that they always use everything for their own personal gain or bad things. And so would I manipulate myself into, again, we use bank robbing is another thing, but manipulate myself into the bank manager where I can just walk into the vault,
walk out, whatever,
another bank, and then take the money with me and leave. Or can I morph myself into someone else to get on a plane or get in the White House? Those kind of things are things that you use that for. What else would you use it for? So I like the idea because it could be anybody. That's why I put it on my list. But the truth of the matter is, you'd only use it for negative things. There's not really much you can do, like you said, unless you you partner with Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yeah.
And then that's just lying to kids that are dying.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess ultimately that still isn't great, is it? That's kind of a sick and twisted thought.
You're like, oh, I'm Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth's dead. And this kid has no idea. But so shapeshifting is one of those ones, I guess, that would be one of those ones that people would be not so happy about, because again, there's so many questions that come along with it. What do you shapeshift? How can you shapeshift? Because it's I would think that shapeshifting is letting people think you're someone else. Doesn't include your voice and doesn't include the power. It's literally just shifting your outside. The what you just mentioned about making someone else believe you're someone else, and that's it.
Right.
That's it.
That's the end of it. Yeah, we're done. There's nothing else there. I don't know. That's a very hard power for me to wrap my mind around, the amount of questions that come up with it. All right, so I'm going on to one that I think a lot of people would have, and it's a common, it's an easy one. It's super strength. And I told a lot of people this, and I don't feel like I have a temper, and I feel like I'm pretty mellow and easy to get along with. But I've been told many times that it would be bad if I was the Hulk. Like, I would be turning green more than I'm not. Like, And I think some of that's environment, right? Certain places, I think I'd probably be green most of the time in my life.
Should we call Elizabeth right now?
So, you know, do you have super strength? Are you Hulk? Are you, you know, like Colossus and that's being brought on by a certain thing? Are you Superman and it's a whole other kind of random? I don't know if they've ever really explained where his super strength comes from necessarily.
But I mean, is it another one of those ones that's basically you aren't just super strong? Like, is there many characters that are just super strong?
No, because they usually have some sort of invulnerability to them, right?
Yes.
Like pretty much always there's something to make them invulnerable as well. But
like
there'd be
Luke
question,
Cage
right? If you're super
strong,
strength,
but also invulnerable.
Your density would have to be thicker, so you would presumably be able to absorb damage more so than most people. You know, how much damage, how much super strength do you truly have? I guess you've got a lot there. Spider-Man is one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe. In Marvel Encyclopedia, I read he was like, I think the 4th strongest, only behind Hulk, Thor, and Thing, if I remember correctly.
Well, question: Hulk or Thor would wonder whether or not he's above the, you know, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He doesn't know if he's strongest Avenger or not. Where am I
exactly? But Spider-Man has the the relative strength of a spider. Well, he's a very small, I'm kind of fragile looking person. Like he doesn't look like, he looks like a gymnast. If you were going to say as an athlete, you don't think of him as being, you know, insanely strong. But he has amazing strength.
Ant-Man,
which is that's another
when he's this big,
right? But because of his relative strength too. Right.
And he's weaker when he's Giant Man.
Right. Your relative strength changes based on your size. So you know, super strength is kind of an odd one to get into as to how this is affected and what. You know, I would think super strength would be cool. You know, everyday life you can carry in all the groceries in the minivan too if you want. You know, if you're gonna use it for good, I mean, if someone's in trouble, you go back to the car accident thing. Who needs jaws of life if you can rip a door off? You know,
I mean, long boxes are heavy,
right? Yeah, I can tell you as a comic book store owner, long boxes are really heavy. When you go to a show and you say, I'm gonna bring 21 boxes with me of comics so I can put these all out.
But if you had super strength, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
So what Paul's trying to say is he would use his super strength just to run a comic book store.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah, and so that my girls know that Dad's the strongest, right? Because right now, Dad's still the strongest in the world. You know, that's it. So we want to make sure that stays. And one of these days, they're gonna figure out I'm not. But you know, we want to keep this going for as long as possible.
When Mom picks something up and Dad can't, is that what?
Yeah, well, Liz's like, just get out of the way. Yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to have them. So we recently put I put kayak racks on the roof, and we got another kayak, and we've been out doing that. And I don't want them to see me put the kayak on because it's not a pretty sight. No. Not due to strength level, but due to the fact that my wife is nearly 6 feet tall and I am not. I am short. And she was like, you know, I always thought being a short guy was cute until this moment. And I've got this kayak up as high as we'll go. And I'm like, And I'm sure if you're my child looking, you're like, yeah, I can't lift the kayak as well as Mom can.
Hey, it's a possibility with your wife being that tall that your kids are going to be bigger than you.
Charlotte, my oldest, is well on her way.
Yeah.
She is well on her way. She is 9 years old and already comes up to past my shoulder.
Yeah.
So Charlotte will be taller than me, I'm quite sure. Katie seems to be built like me. She's this little tank. Yeah. And Emma is very petite. I can't figure out what she's doing. So it'll be interesting to see where they all fall.
So that at some point, your oldest is going to be putting the kayaks on the roof with your wife.
Yes. And
you're going to be like,
and I'm going to be like, I can still pick it up and carry it up the hill. Like, I at least got that.
They're struggling with the life jackets.
Yeah. Somebody want to give me a hand with these? So super strength, you know, you could use it for other purposes, right? You can use it for other reasons. But it would be a cool, useful power. Everyday life useful.
But I think so super strength and flight, for an example, I think those two would be kind of cool if you can create a combination of the two of those.
Yep.
Or the single one of those with another one of our powers.
Yeah.
Like if you're super strong and regeneration, or you can fly, and you can have
super
shapeshifting ability, whatever it may be. One of the like having those two as a supplementary power to your actual power would be a kind of a cool thing, and I think that's not asking too much in that aspect. My next one is similar to teleportation in a sense. It'd be more along the lines of Nightcrawler, as intangibility. So the ability to pass through walls.
Kitty Pryde.
Yes, Kitty Pryde. I have Vision on this list because he does not know how to use doors.
That's right.
But this is one of the ones that the conversation comes up with. Why? What the hell would you use a power for intangibility if that was your only power? So you didn't have to open a door?
That's my Kitty Pryde thing. Is like, to me, it's just not very interesting.
But
like you're a member of the X-Men, and in fact, in some books, you're the leader of the X-Men.
Yeah.
And all you can do is not touch anything.
But so my reason why I ended up on my list was this is not a list that you get to pick. My idea behind it is not, this is a list of powers you get to pick from.
Right.
You're like, you get to the age of 18 and you get to pick a power, and this is the power you pick from. Obviously, there's powers on here no one would ever pick if that was the case. But if you were just given it to you, I guess intangibility is in the same category as a Nightcrawler version of teleportation, whereas you can go to point A to point B. I can walk through the wall. Just like Nightcrawler can only do it basically if you can see the place.
Right.
That's no different than than walking through a wall. If I can see, okay, I guess if I can say I can walk through the wall right here in front of me and go to the next room. I could, again, bad things. I could rob a bank. I could go into locked doors, safes. You can reach into things. I guess the idea also is some people are like, oh, you can't walk into something, but you can reach into something. I can reach into a container that I can't unlock. I could open doors that are locked.
Safes become irrelevant because you could just get into a safe.
So I guess intangibility would be more of a villain-based thing, even though the two people we mentioned, Kitty Pryde and Vision, are both heroes.
Yeah. That's funny because I'm trying to think of if I can think off the top of my head of a villain that has that power, and I'm not really coming up with one. I'm sure
intangibility also would allow you, if someone swung a punch at you,
you can't be hit.
Yes.
Yeah. In combat mode, and I mean, in some respects, I think there's like I want to say I saw it somewhere where you could reach in someone, you could kill somebody very easily.
Yes, you could, because because I guess intangibility is your body's telling yourself to be intangible, because you wouldn't be able to sit down ever. You wouldn't be able to stand ever.
Yeah, it's a control. It's a control. It's like it's a control.
So if you reached in and then told yourself stop being intangible, then your hand is in someone's body.
So inside,
you grab their spine and you pull their spine out. Then you can kill someone.
Yeah. It'd be a terrifying thing for the wrong person to have.
Correct.
And I guess it could be useful as a hero to a degree, but it's one of those things I almost think needs another power with it.
Yes.
Like, because you're saying, it's the same as Nightcrawler's teleportation, but Nightcrawler can still go as far as he can see. So if you see it on the street, bang, you're down the street.
Yeah.
You're still intangible, but you're just still walking along at a normal pace. So great, you're gonna get there the same amount of time that I'll get there. It's just you walk through a tree. Whoop-de-doo.
If I'm standing outside my garage and someone comes that I want to see them, I can just quickly back up and get that kind of thing.
You're like Homer Simpson fading into the bushes.
But I can do it with the power. So I think, like I said, the if you're using it for good, and if you had another power to go with it, I think that's one of those weird things. There's very few. If you were to go and look through all the superheroes and all the comic books and find and put on a list of all the comic book heroes that have one power, that's the only power they have, even if it's a big power and a small power, there's a lot of them that have multiple things: super strength and invulnerability, flight and super strength, and So I think that
Vision's very powerful.
Kitty,
I think Kitty only really has that, but she's trained to fight, which is what makes it different for her.
And again, I think I would use it more it's more of a defensive thing if you think about it. All of these other ones, super strength, regeneration is more of a defensive thing.
Unless you were willing to kill someone.
Yes.
It's in the Kitty Pryde world where she's not going to kill these villains.
No.
It's intangible to defense and then attack for punches and kicks and then intangible again. Because she's trying to just stop someone, but not physically truly hurt them to the degree that they're not going to ever recoup from it. But yeah, I don't know.
Two powers that are kind of like, eh. But I thought there was something about it. Like I said, I think I looked at the list of saying my powers that I would like to pick on this list of powers that you'd be forced upon you, not chosen. That you just.
Here's a question: how do you stay on the floor you're on? Like, wouldn't you always end up in the basement, like no matter what, right?
How do you stand with your legs?
Right.
Like, how are you standing right now? Your mind is already making your body stand.
Because your body becomes intangible.
But you're not actively telling your body right now as a human being, as Paul Eaton right now. Your body, when you stand up, you're not telling yourself to stand up.
No.
Your body and your mind are already. You're standing up because your mind knows you're supposed to stand up.
You're supposed to stand up. It's going faster than your.
And my thought, intangibility is like you don't want to be in the basement. So
right.
Your mind is telling yourself.
Your mind's controlling a certain level of your molecules to stay at the level you're at.
Yes.
Because how does that work? Only the soles of your feet are still on the floor.
Right.
I don't know. That's a one that if you start really getting deep into it, like shapeshifting, it can be really confusing as how that power really works.
Well, there's no definition of it because these are all fake. So it's like there's no actual real definition.
There's no way you're gonna cite. There was a Science of the X-Men book I read back a long time ago. It was a novel that had like how would these powers work? Yes. And I don't remember if Kitty's was in it or not, but that would be a very odd and confusing one to try to figure out if you were gonna really get down to how this works. So all right, so I'm going on to the one I thought was cool, and it's funny because as I look through this list, I have so much X-Men, and it's funny how much X-Men affected my life, and yet I don't now as an adult read X-Men. But weather manipulation is such a cool power. And really, there aren't very many people who have that power or who do it well. In the DC one, I think there's a villain, I want to say it's like one of Flash's villains that is like cheesy that has it. Like, but the first and only person I think of realistically is Storm. Yeah. I think of Storm. And how cool is that to think that you can control all of the Earth's weather at a whim with your own power. So we talked earlier about her flying because you can fly off of wind current. You're forcing the winds to lift you. You now have the power of electricity if you want to create lightning, rain, cold, heat, anything brought about by the Earth's weather is something you have at your disposal. That's pretty that realistically is insanely powerful.
Yes.
And very, very cool to control. And one of my favorite powers, if you want to look at how truly powerful like a character like Storm is.
Because there's defensive properties.
Anybody.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like that's something they never touch on. Not never, but like it's not as brought up as much as it should be. Like even in the movies, when she had that, they didn't give her the ability to just like kick butt. She helped a lot, but like not like I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of cool because it's Iceman. It's anybody with pyro powers. It's anybody with flying powers. All those all mixed into one.
And if you're trained well enough to use it, think of how many different ways you could use this. Like you just said, pyro. If with someone lighting a single flame, if somebody writes any sort of flame, you could control this into being an inferno.
Yes.
And then put it right back out.
Let's go into the questioning powers part of this right now then quickly. If you're in a drought, you're in California and the town that you're in Los Angeles and they're in a drought, can you manipulate the weather you're in? So if there's not moisture in the air,
yeah. I think for everything I have ever seen, you can literally manipulate because you are changing something in the molecular level of the airs to affect it. So you are literally creating rain, but you're pulling it, from somewhere probably. There's obviously some form of liquids, and you're creating that to create rain that is needed.
And even if you grab it from the lake that's nearby.
Right, it's being pulled from somewhere to create it where you are that you need it. So it's if you wanted to look at it like a telekinesis power, except on a global level around you, because you're controlling everything around you. If you want electricity, you're simply changing the structures to create lightning. You're changing that current or whatever to create the lightning. You're creating rain. You're changing temperatures. I think the cold and stuff would be harder to try to understand how you're really all of a sudden in the middle of a 90-degree day creating it to be sub-zero.
Yes.
I'm sure there's scientists out there that could come up with an explanation too.
Not us. Not too.
Not us.
Yeah.
No, so not a comic book store guy and a beer guy to be able to go, let's figure this out tonight.
But I guess the other thing is, I think there is some of these powers that come with a lot of personal responsibility, but there's also a lot of them that come like that power would come with stress and responsibility, because you create too much of a storm and you don't see little Johnny over in the corner, and you lightning strike him on accident. Like that could be like, you have to have some sort of like, or create a tornado in a room in an area that you destroy someone's house. Like there is some sort of personal.
Much of this?
There's stress to that. There's some personal responsibility.
And the needs, right? You just said a drought. The needs of it, a landslide. Oh, we need you. We need you. Yeah. You would be globally needed by everyone to fix everything. And you are like, you're at really, Storm is at a god level. I mean, in Africa, when she was a child, they talked about her being a god there because, when there was droughts, she could cure the drought. She could allow there to be food by vegetation growing and things. And she was worshipped by the people there. And, you think about that. If you woke up tomorrow with that power, the amount you could affect and change, and defensively, it goes into like the nuke scenario. You could, with the winds and strength, change the direction of missiles and change numerous things. I mean, she is extremely, extremely powerful. And if you're going into having that under your belt and you're controlling it, like it would be the stress of the needs of the world are now yours to have to, like, if you're going to responsibly do this, to have to do
and say no. You'd have to say no at times. It's like let people die.
I just can't. Sorry, I just can't. Like,
I gotta work.
Yeah. Sorry,
I've got a 9 to 5 too. Yeah,
it's not gonna run itself. I gotta go in there, guys. And where do you draw those lines, right? Well, how would you deal with that? But if you're looking for self-gain, sure, that would be very easy as a villain to say. It feels like the old to me, like the old 80s, like the Cobra Commander. There will be all rain here, no rain there, right? Like, pay me until I change it. Like, that's a pretty easy, villainous thing. But as a hero, exhausting, like you said, the world would need you to fix everything that's happening.
Well, there's an episode of X-Files where one of the X-Files is this, they go to a place where there's like all these droughts, and all of a sudden this guy comes, he's a rainmaker. He does it, but there's a person in there whose emotions are affecting the weather. And so they're using it for personal financial gain by going to a town, not telling anybody you can affect the weather, but you can. And so you go to this town, they pay you to dance and do whatever you want to do, and you make it look like a show. And it rains, and then the town pays you a bunch of money, so the crops are grown and all that stuff. So it could be used in a financial gain as well. It's
very easily. Yes, very easily. So you can do a lot there. I mean, you could easily become a global terrorist with that. I mean, there's a lot to that. It's kind of like the cosmic absorption thing. You just became so far beyond the human. The super strength guy, you're very still limited by. Yeah, you could go nuts and create chaos and this and that, but you're only still doing it at a very small level compared to these powers that are just enormous.
Yeah, and so, like I said, I feel like that one comes with a lot of personal responsibility that some of the other ones don't, or personal responsibility, global responsibility, where some of them are just personal responsibility, I should say. My last power on my list of top 10 or top 5, I should say, for me, but top 10 for us, is absorbing powers. Okay, so this is another one that falls in that I feel like the last 3 I picked are ones that are like question marks around it.
A lot to think about.
Okay, so the two characters I came up with that are from pop culture is Rogue, right? And Peter Petrelli from Heroes. And the reason I picked 2 of them is because they're 2 different versions of this ability. And the ability is this rogue has to physically touch someone, and she pulls. Like she hurts that other person.
It weakens the person. Could kill them.
Whereas Peter Petrelli just has to be in the area of that person, and he gets the power, and that person doesn't even know that he was able to use that power. Yeah. And they still have it. It's just he gets to use that power on him.
Right.
And then there's the last one on the show, Heroes. There's Siler, who can actually make it. He sees how you work, so he's able to absorb your power by opening your head and looking at the brain and finding where it is, and he gets to keep those powers. So my whole thing about absorbing powers is it's temporary,
right?
Like that you don't get to absorb someone's power and now you're almighty. So that could definitely be used for bad, because you just go. I would just go around to every human being out there who has powers and steal their powers and be like, I'm now the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
The idea would be that I would be able to be in the power. So I went into your comic book shop tonight and you were there and you have super strength, and Will was there and he has the availability to teleport for a certain period of time. I don't know what that is. I'm just making this crap up. But if it's 24 hours or 6 hours or 5 hours or 3 hours,
until your body can't handle it anymore.
Until you can only absorb 2 powers at a time. And once you get close to someone else that has a different power, one of those powers that goes away. Or again,
that could create a lot of problems if you don't know what's happening.
Correct. The rules could be whatever. Or you mentally have to think about it. Like, I want to take Paul's power for the day.
Right.
And you have to think about that power and go, okay, Paul can fly, so I'm going to take the flying power when I go see Paul. And then if I wanted to fly again, hey, I'm going on vacation next week, I want to fly. I swing by the comic book store and I fly down there. And then when I'm down there,
pick up a power again.
And I have to find someone else that has that power. I like the idea because I feel like I like to change things up so much in my life that I feel like it'd be nice to have that ability to just have and try and be around these people. And
whatever it is, every day is a little different.
Correct. And that makes you have every power, but also not be all powerful. And so you have the ability to have all power. So like, oh crap, I broke my leg. I swing by Wolverine's house. Hey, Logan, what's up, man? Hang out with him for an hour and all my legs healed and I can go home.
Move on with your life.
And then, I'm going on vacation. Let me take this flying power from someone.
Teleportation.
Yes. Or, I need to be able to pass through walls for some reason. I want to shapeshift for the weekend because I want Halloween. I want to go to a Comic-Con and be the ultimate Comic-Con person, actually showing up as Stan Lee, not as a person dressed up as Stan Lee. And so I just thought that was one of the coolest powers. And I think Peter Petrelli's version of it is one of my favorite ones because he just kind of like doesn't really know that he has it, but he has it. And you figure it out that if he's around someone, he can have it more than the Rogue one. Because I guess the Rogue one's nice because it gives you some responsibility that you're actually hurting someone to take the powers. But then would you just wear gloves like Rogue does and never take someone's powers because you're afraid to hurt them?
And in Rogue's one is like, it's sad because she absorbs everything. So if she touches an average human, she could almost kill them.
Yes.
And she does. She's gaining memories. She's gaining all these things from them. And she can never, based on her power, she can never have a lover. She can never kiss someone. She can never have any intimate contact at all because she's going to absorb that power. So that is a curse. I think that's a big part of her character, that it's a curse.
Yes.
And it's not something she enjoys when she has to use it. Maybe on the right person, maybe on someone that's really bad. But then if you think about her getting the memories and the connection to it, maybe she sees that traumatic event that led to this. Like, she may understand a person she touches more than the person understands them themselves. Like, that's a pretty deep power. Versus I hung around you for a couple minutes, now I can do whatever. But so if you think about that as a single power, you have that ability as the only powerful person on Earth.
Yeah,
you're not getting far.
Well, exactly. And that's one of those things you think about. If you're in a world like Heroes, for example, most of Heroes is each person has their own power, and there doesn't seem like there's another person with those powers.
Right. Yeah, it's a single one-off event.
Correct. Right. Whereas if it was like more like comic books, like actual comic books, it seems like, again, if I got around Luke Cage, I would get super strength and invulnerability.
Yep. Invulnerable skin. Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that, again, here's the other, like the caveat to the whole thing is, in this world that all of a sudden we have powers, is it a cosmic event or some sort of intergalactic event that everybody has powers? They wake up the next day.
The world's powerful.
Power is.
Yeah. the mutation happened, whatever.
Are you just like more of an X-Men thing where you get to a certain age and your gene is active? How would you know you had that power? Like, Rogue, where she touched someone and she learned, let's reference the 1990s cartoon, which is one of the best, I think, descriptions of Rogue's powers. Is pretty cool. Is actually one of the best cartoons in history. But touching someone and knowing that, hurting someone and figuring that out. Or like Peter Bocelli, again, if you watch Heroes, again, that show came out in the early 2000s, so I think I need to say spoiler alert.
I can imagine.
But he thought he was able to fly. He just thought, I can fly.
There's probably a generation of people now that might go, what is Heroes? I got to go watch that. Now you may actually be inspiring people to watch it.
And Heroes is his brother can fly, and he thinks he can fly because he just can fly. But the truth of the matter is, he's really just taking his power from his brother. And so that other thing is like, oh my God, I can fly. And you jump off a building and you don't have that power anymore.
Yeah, you're
Hopefully someone nearby has regeneration because you're going to die pretty quickly.
It's like the mutant Leech there, where he absorbs the powers of them. And I feel like Leech was kind of like by accident, if I remember correctly. He was a Morlock.
Yes.
And so he got it accidentally.
Yeah.
So there's like the different levels of how are you doing this, and can you control it? Can you not control it? Can you have as many powers as are around you? But once again, if you're the only, so now you're hanging around me and you can manage to swing a psychotic 80-hour work week with 2 jobs and the ability to mediocrely stop hockey pucks. And until you even put on ice skates, you're not going to know that one.
Correct.
Like,
and is it powers or is it abilities? Can I I wrote absorbing powers, but is it absorbing abilities?
Abilities,
like, there are abilities.
If it's abilities, you hang around, a UFC fighter, you hang around.
Then I can fight.
You can fight. You can do all these things, right? Like that'd be pretty useful. It's kind of Taskmaster is the ability to, which isn't even on the list, but the ability to, he watches a fighting style and can immediately replicate it.
Like, can I hang around Sidney Crosby and play hockey? Can I hang around LeBron James and play basketball and so on? Yes.
Yeah. Can you somehow manage to gain all the abilities that these people have?
Then that would be worth it to have it, even if there's no more powerful people in the world, because you're just getting the abilities of someone else.
You could be the best of a person you could get around. As long as you're around someone with a remarkable, natural ability, you've gained that ability.
So I'm crossing the powers off and writing absorbing abilities.
Because that's pretty useful. That's pretty cool. That's almost like the Captain America, right? Because he's had the serum, but he's kind of like his level is like the absolute best a human being could be.
Correct.
And you're kind of at that level there, because as long as you can keep gaining abilities, you're going to be the best at the level of human being.
Yes. So that one makes
as long as you can have as many abilities as you can get.
So your last one.
My last one is
after my car.
Yes, it is. And this goes after my favorite character is Magnetism.
Yes.
So this goes back to the conversation I had at work, and I had to explain what that was because so many people were like, what? Like, okay, so Magnetism. Think about the amount of power you now have. There's so much metal in the world. And when it gets into Magneto, there's a lot of levels here.
Yes.
Like there's super powerful Magneto versus weakened Magneto, because if you're super powerful, you're powered off the cores of the planet. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can literally do anything involving metal, right? Like you can fly because you can create a different magnetism around yourself. So you're now, instead of the pole, you're going away. You can lift heavy objects that are metal because it's simply your ability to control that magnetic field. You can kill someone in books I've read simply with what's a thought, because all you're doing is taking all the metal in their blood and making a clot right there. Mm-hmm. Bang. It is an insanely powerful thing, a terrifying thing in the hands of a villain. Heroic wise, you'd have to learn to use that power, and how are you going to do it? It goes into a car crash scenario. You can lift a car, but what else can you do with this? How are you going to use this to benefit the world as a whole?
Well, I think why people question that also is they don't understand how much things in the world are metal.
Right. Yeah. If you just think about
metal in it.
As a kid, I started collecting X-Men toys. And not knowing really all that much about X-Men, I just thought they were cool, right? Oh, this girl can light up and it's Storm and she has lightning. Cool. Oh, this guy's Wolverine. He has claws. Cool. Their villain's a guy that has a hand with a magnet.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, this is the villain. You know, I thought it was stupid. I'm like, what? But as you get older and you start thinking about the amount of control that is, the amount of power that is, you know, in the X-Men series, he ripped the adamantium off Wolverine's bones. Like, regenerate from that. Like, not so easy to do.
That wasn't his slogan? Regenerate from that, mother.
It should have been.
That was the Netflix series. It should have been.
That's a Netflix series version. You know, that is a lot of power at one person's abilities. Like you said, think of how much metal there is. Have the metal around you and in the ground, and that we survive off of, and things are made out of, and you know, both naturally occurring and not. That's a lot. That's a lot of power.
And if there's not much you can do to combat that, and you see that in the movies, again, spoiler alert,
from X-Men in the early 2000s
was that they put him in a plastic jail cell because, again,
and everything had to be plastic. Yes, they had to carefully go through metal detectors because, you know, it was like, I love the scene where he walks out and all the cops are there with all the guns, and he's like, Homo sapiens and their guns.
Yeah, and
he points all the guns at him. You know, like, it's easy. It's simple, because with a simple thought of it, he can control all of that metal.
I'm just like looking around me right now. Like, the microphone is part of metal. This is metal. The band, the table thing, my laptop case is metal because it's a MacBook. Like, it's just there's just metal everywhere.
All
the time. The one that comes down to it is the iron that's in your body, and things like that are I know, versions of metal that would be affected by someone who had magnetism. But the weird thing, I also felt like it has to be something like the intangibility thing, where your mind has to work at a different level and has to work at a different.
You have to understand that power.
Because you have to. When I go, hey, I want to move that tripod that the camera's on to me, and not take the nails out of the wall behind me,
and not have it come at you at 100 miles an hour.
Correct. And so,
or slowly dragging across the floor.
There's a shelf that no one can see. It's a metal shelf behind me with a lot of metal on it. When I wanted the thing to the right of it, that the whole shelf doesn't come towards me as well. So, being able to manipulate specific things. And that's the question, that one of those, if we wanted to poke holes in all of these things, how does that work?
Yeah.
Like a magnet works like a magnet.
You've got to be able to have that focus to pinpoint how and what you're doing.
But if I held a big magnet in front of me right now and just used the word magnet for the power, everything that's metal in this area would come towards me. So that's the poking holes in it, is the fact that magnetism has to be like, you have to train yourself to be able to pick how does my hand know that the only thing I want is that one nail in the wall there, not all the nails that are in the wall there. So
extremely fine tuning your powers.
It'd be more like a sensei, more like a, you know, those,
right, you would have to take years of training to get this right, or else it's going to go very badly.
But yeah, so that power, that again, it's one of those ones that comes with the cosmic power, that has that all powerful thing, but in a different way. The flying thing, where it's like the power of flight doesn't have to be just flight; it could be because of other things,
other things,
levels of flying.
Can you only do it as well as you humanly can do it in the first place?
Correct. Yeah.
If you're a track star, you can probably fly pretty far. If you're me, you're not going to make it very, very far at all on the stage in my current physical condition.
Your body's like, why are you making us fly again?
Oh, you can fly. I can fly. You're more like hovering. Like, I got to get all this off the ground, and I had a heavy lunch today. Okay, and you know,
my legs are already telling me I don't want me to stand, let alone fly.
Let alone fly. Yeah. So at this stage, I'm more of like a lazy hover.
And so the two I left off, I'm gonna throw a couple out there that I left off that I don't want to spend too much time on. We've already been going a pretty good amount of time, and you've got a family to get home. Go. I have a baby in the other room. Was the invulnerability. I did mention that a couple times with Luke Cage. The ability to it's the next stage up, I guess, against regeneration, where the point where you would need to regenerate because you don't break bones, you don't have things hit you because it just bounces off you.
But then there's the gray area of that. Are you aging still, or are you not aging?
Yeah,
you're invulnerable, but is your body still aging?
It just can't be vulnerable to age.
Right. How does this work? We got a gray area.
Can you get a cold? Are you
Look at the
invulnerable
Luke
to
Cage show
disease?
where he breaks something on the inside and they can't figure out how to cure that
Yes,
because
they can't cut it into him.
They can't cut into him.
Yeah. Is your skin just invulnerable? Or are you fully invulnerable?
Or are you Superman that appears to be invulnerable at everything besides a green rock?
Yes.
Like, you got this. Sorry, to all my Superman fans out there, I love Superman, I swear.
No, Superman sucks.
Superman sucks. That should be the password. That should be the password to our Galactic Comic Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, yeah, Superman sucks. But it's Superman's problem is the fact that they gave him too many powers. That's my problem with Superman. They just gave him
and originally they just kept writing him in there. They're like, oh crap, we wrote him into a corner. Well, did I mention
he's got laser vision? Yeah.
Yep.
And the last one was telepathy. So telepath, your Professor X, Jean Grey, the ability to read someone's mind. Again, why?
A friend of mine said that's what he wanted. But I said, what would your power? He would say telepath, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility, and I get it. Why? So
yeah,
I can see what you want. Like when I go
what
to your
you're thinking.
Well, I guess part of it would be like you could negotiate better.
You'd always know.
Like if I go to buy
what somebody was really at,
comic book from you on your back wall.
That.
If I go to buy a back wall comic book, a wall comic from you in a 9.6, Scotty Young slabbed comic book from you, and you're like in your mind going, I don't want to go less than $40. I'd go, will you take 40?
Right.
If it's listed for 90, and you'd take it because like, okay, I don't want to go less than 40. But if I didn't know, then maybe I would have done 75. You know what I mean? Like, so there's that aspect of it, but otherwise, like what benefit do you get long term out of knowing what someone else is thinking?
And what I said to my buddy Nino was, in a lot of books I've read, it takes a lot of training to not go insane by this, not having it all at you, everyone's thoughts at you all the time. You don't want to hear this crap. It's like going to Walmart, every single person being on their cell phone. You're hearing the conversation of every single person.
Well, has anybody ever seen What Women Want with Mel Gibson?
Oh, I vaguely recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, when he walks through the mall and all the women, you hear all the women's thoughts. He's just like, or on Heroes. I'm gonna pull Heroes up again. That's probably the most I've ever mentioned.
It's been a Heroes night, man.
Is there's the cop? He can hear, like he walks, he can hear everybody. He's like his head hurts.
Yeah,
from all the different voices he can hear in his head.
That's so much like to take in at one time. You've got to be able to shut it out, or else it would drive you insane, like in no time flat. Like, hey, I would be a power. That's a curse to me.
Well,
you don't want to know, right?
Correct. And the last one I have on the list that I added afterwards that Paul doesn't really know about, wasn't on my list, was from Heroes. And I don't know. And I don't know anything, because the reason I'm mentioning it from here is because I don't know if it's a DC character or a Marvel character has this power is to nullify someone else's power.
Okay, so you're blocking that power.
So like if I'm in the room, if I go into Galactic and everybody in there has powers and someone's trying to light a flame in the thing, I'm standing in the room, no one has powers.
I bet there's probably if you look over the overall like mutant encyclopedia, there's gotta be somebody that's not, because they've had a mutant for frickin' everything.
So my thought was that would be kind of a fun one too, because it's a 100% defensive one.
As long as you're living in a world of powers.
Correct.
Maybe you and I have that now and it's just completely useless. We don't know. So I would say if I had a mutant power, I would have the ability to like curdle milk, like at a glance or something. It's like the most useless thing. Like if it was like a pregnancy test and you're like, oh, I'm a mutant. What's my power? Like it is.
I have the ability to mow the lawn really fast, but I've never mowed a lawn.
Yeah, I have the lamest.
I have the power
I can make the grass grow an inch faster a month. Like
yes. Well, that's my lawn. We were just talking about how tall my lawn was. Maybe that's my power.
See? You got that neighbor you don't like, and you're like, yeah,
exactly. So I'll read through these really quickly because, like I said, we it's been a while since Paul and I have been on. It's pretty fun, and we actually delayed this podcast a couple of times. We're busy men, and so on. Next time I'm gonna hopefully do it at Galactic, and potentially next time we're gonna have Adam with us too, because Adam's my new co-host, and I think it'd be kind of fun to do it in the back room. We set it up.
That'd be awesome.
And do it and do that. Like I don't know if anybody's ever watched Comic Book Men on AMC. But they do that same thing where they're in the room together and they do the comic book at a comic book store. It would be kind of cool. So we had Teleportation, Flight. We had I tried to number them here. Flight, Regeneration. We had Cosmic Absorption. We had Shapeshifting, Super Strength, Intangibility, Weather Manipulation, absorbing abilities. I changed it mid podcast, and magnetism. So those are the powers that I think that, again, if we had a choice for us to pick from, I think there's probably a top 5 times 6 that we actually would probably pick from. The last 5 or 3 or 4 were probably the ones that were just like, okay, these are cool. I want to add these in there.
Right.
I think if Paul and I had to pick, it'd probably be multiple ones. Like if we had to be selfish, it'd be like, oh, flying and having the ability to have super strength.
Yeah, because you want those paired. Like, I mean, you could have like, so magnetism gives you flight, right? Weather manipulation gives you flight.
Yeah.
But you know, like the intangibility one, if you combine that with super strength, whoa.
Yeah.
But without it, you know, got a lot going on there.
Correct.
You know what the inside of, you know, like every room looks like. Wow.
Exactly. And so that was the other thing. It was, what was the other one my mom's my cousin had, which was X-ray vision. Like, what would be the point? Like, I understand it's a cool power, and I feel like it's one of those things. And I feel like some of these powers are good if you have a team. Like if we had a Galactic Comics team where it's me, you, and Will, and people were just, we have a team of people who have all these different powers, and you can use your powers together as a team. But if you're a sole person and that's all you have, and all you have is X-ray vision,
you're not doing anything with that. You're not doing anything. You know, someone has a weapon.
Yeah. Well,
what are you gonna do about it?
Do we get milk? Oh, yep. I don't have to open the fridge. I can just look in the fridge and see if we have milk. So those are the ones.
The beer fridge is getting low again.
Oh yeah, I wonder if we can do that. So that to me is you know, when you get home and you have the lights on in the house, can you just, oh my god, that's an intruder. But like, okay, now you know there's an intruder in there, but you can't do anything about it because all you can do is see that there
you're
is
only
one.
Usefully using that for like 1% of the time. Right. Like there is not a lot going on. You walk through a crowd and you can like see something in someone's purse, like, oh, that person's got a lot of money on them, or you know what are you gonna do? I mean, I guess if you're a villain, maybe you know who to rob. Oh, if I'm robbing that guy, he's got $11. Like,
we didn't pick this out. We didn't actually put together a list of 5 bottom ones, but maybe we should have picked ones of the most stupidest powers that are out there.
Powers you could have if you really consider it. Like, and it's funny they gave that to Superman, who's this like, you know, all powerful one. Where did that one come in? Why? What the hell? Just because it sounded cool? Because X-ray glasses were in all the comics at the time?
Oh, that too, and possibly a group of white men in New York City being like, oh, he could look into the women's locker room.
Ooh. Like, I think that was on like a Smallville episode where the guy got Superman's powers and he was sitting there like watching, right? He was watching the ladies' gym. Yeah, because you're not doing much with that in any constructive usefulness.
I can look at this person's mail without opening it. And where does the X-ray vision go? Do you look through the entire piece of mail, or only the level
Right, you're just seeing your hand on the other side, like, oh,
or you're seeing your skeleton, or you're seeing the floor or the ground behind it, are you seeing are you getting cancer from all the every time you look at your hand, are you giving yourself cancer because
are you causing cancer to everybody else with the radiation you're causing? Where is this? Or is this weird thing where you can see certain things? Because you never see paper, right? Like,
so we need to write our own comic book now of stupid powers that people have. That the comic book isn't about the guys saving the world. It's about everybody making fun of that person because that's the power you have.
It's the garbage.
Yes. Yep. The garbage pail kids.
The garbage pail kids power list.
Comic book, power runs. Like, oh my god, you have that power. Oh my god, was it Meg? Isn't it in the is there an episode of Family Guy where they get powers because of they roll around in the sludge and Meg can grow her fingernails really fast. Everybody else has badass powers, and she goes, "Watch this," and it's like fingernails, like kind of like what Sabretooth can do, but no strength and no nothing. She just has long fingers,
just normal human fingernails. That's just gross. It's nasty.
But superpowers would be great to have, but for right now, we'll keep them in comic books, which you can get at Galactic Comics in outside downtown Bangor on Hammond Street in Bangor, and
right by Stephen King's house.
And so I think that's cool about doing this episode about powers. But you know what I've learned, and I think it's mainly past 14 and 16 months, is there's a lot of good comic books that have nothing to do with superpowers. And that's cool about the comic book industry right now, is that it's not just Marvel and DC, not to just harp for an hour and a half about superpowers and say that they're not necessary. But there are definitely some things that are not necessary in comic books, and that's superpowers. And I there's definitely some really good comic books. I mean, Dude, I'm glad I saw the Time Before Time thing because I think I'm going to give a high recommendation of Time Before Time. Another Image home run, I think, for right now. I mean, there's only 2 issues. But there's definitely some fun comic books that you don't really need powers.
You don't need them for anything.
To do that.
Well, there's an entire hero that might be one of my all-time favorites who has no powers. Saying that he's a DC character and his name's Batman or anything, but
Batman, Iron Man.
Yeah, but
yes,
Iron Man's got the. I mean, I guess Batman has his gadgets. Iron Man has the technology. But
and here's the last one I'll say is that if you want to add a caveat to all of this, it could be like Spawn.
Yeah.
And have only a limited amount of power you can use.
There's only so much time before it ends.
Yeah, so that would be a cool one too, where it's like you have power. I mean, what's his name? Fantastic Four's son.
Franklin.
Franklin, where it's like you could only have so much. You have power. You're the most powerful person in the entire cosmic universe, but it runs out.
Yeah,
and that would be another way to make some of these powers. Clock. You have you're Superman, but you only can use it to an extent. When do you use it? You have to choose when you use it. You have to use it wisely. That would be, maybe you would be a villain using it for your own personal gain because of the fact that you could only use it to a specific amount of time in use.
Right.
So all of this was a great hour and a half to talk and chat about something that's absolutely pointless. And that's what makes me happy because the fact that it's like our own therapy. Get away from any problems or stress that are in the world and talk about things that don't make any sense and don't mean anything. But I will say that comic books is one of those escapes in the world of me. Stress. If I'm stressed, having short conversations on Wednesday when I pick up comic books or texting back and forth with you or talking on these podcasts, it just makes you escape the world that we live in. I think that's what's cool about comic books. Every night I read comic books before I go to bed because it helps me escape any stress that I'm thinking about and maybe I should be getting up and working. And it makes me fall asleep because I'm like, okay, now I'm in the world of make believe, and then I fall asleep and go to bed, and it's great. So comic books have been a savior to me in a sense over the number of years that I've had. It made me help me read. For the first time ever, I read a book fully was a comic book.
Me too.
And so it's big. And so superpowers are one of those ones, and it's always a conversation. Have this conversation in your car on a family trip. Which superpower would you have and why? Have the discussion.
You can have it with everyone. Like they don't have to be a comic nerd. They don't have to know about every comic and every hero and everything. There's always something, right? There's always somebody with something.
Also, like we mentioned, that not every comic book has superpowers in it, but superpowers are not always just about comic books.
Yep. And then you can do the second side of that. I had a guy today said he wants to be invulnerable. He wants to live forever. He wants to have all that. And I said, well, think about the curse that is.
Yep.
Do you really want to outlive every person you love? Do you really want to think about that? How long does that last?
Do that without the superpowers and ask them.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
I went to my great grandmother's funeral in Massachusetts a number of years ago, and there was like 15 people there, and it was like mostly family, and it was just because all of her friends had already passed.
They all died. Yeah.
And so having that live forever thing is not always a good thing.
I had a customer in the automotive world that he was a much older gentleman, and he said one day, I said, geez, it's one of those things where you check up on your customers. And I said, geez, Bob, you haven't been ordering as much. He goes, well, all my customers died. This is all people I always knew and worked on, and they've all died. And
so maybe that age thing is not.
That's something to put in. That's something to put in your call report. Slowing down due to death.
Yes. I mean, and it's not the live forever thing. Maybe it's just live to a certain point. I lived to 100.
Longer. Yeah.
I lived to 100 and I have more. Maybe it's just regeneration where you live to whatever age you can die at, but you don't die.
But it's hundreds of years.
Yes, not
much longer than the average person.
Because after your initial run. So if I live to 100, that second 100, okay, maybe you make some friends over the years. But that third 100, I'm not making any friends. Because I know they're all going to die on me.
And you've lived so long and you've seen so much and you've seen the change of the world and change of technology. And you've lived through things that have just been so drastically different.
Yes.
How do you, in Wolverine's case, how do you explain to somebody that you lived through and fought in the Civil War?
No one will believe you.
No one's going to believe you. No one's going to understand that. No one's going to understand what you've seen. Like,
well, that was so to finish it up and talk about the time before time thing was there was a person. So the whole idea, and Paul kind of explained to me when I was buying the comic book, but the idea behind it is that the world's ending or time's ending, and they get sent back to a specific time to live longer. And so this family gets sent back to 1985 in the book, and just a quick thing was the person goes, "What's the Wi-Fi password?" And the guy who's sending them back goes, "That won't be invented for another 10 years." And the kid's like, "What? You never told me this."
No.
And so the same thing, it's like living for long and taking and being like, "Oh my God, I saw the time when there was people who, trekked across the entire country, and halfway the group of people were different from the time you left to the time you arrived at the other side of the country because they died half the way, to nowadays where you can get Wi-Fi on an airplane when you're flying across the country."
Right.
So
because you're bored, you just gotta
correct.
Can't handle it, right?
Yes. So Galactic Comics is on Hammond Street, 547 Hammond Street in Bangor.
547 Hammond Street.
I've now memorized that address. You're on Galactic Comics on Facebook, on Instagram. You are kicking butt. Open Wednesday through Saturday. Check out their hours online. You can check them out. Contact him. You can Facebook message on Facebook about comic book issues you might have.
Please do anytime. I will respond as soon as I can. I try to be very responsible and get back to people about anything you guys need. I try. And
he's doing his Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering, action figures, toys, vintage toys, new toys.
Vintage toys, new toys, you name it, statues.
Paperbacks. Yeah. So everything comic book related in a sense. If he doesn't have it, he can try to get it. And that's pretty cool about that. And so definitely well worth stopping by if you're in Bangor. If you're not, and you make a trek up here, it'd be pretty cool. But at least follow them and see what he's got on Instagram and Facebook, because Paul works hard and we're proud of him here at the Main State of Mind for sure.
Appreciate it.
We'll talk soon, and we'll talk some more about something else. We'll figure out some sort of cool list.
I've had a couple ideas recently, so we'll get together on some stuff.
And there'd be some now that also like so with Josh at Queen City Cinema Club, we do the movie podcast. We talked about doing the next episode. I believe we're recording in a couple of weeks about upcoming things, like what's coming out, because we haven't been able to do that with that because of the fact that. So there might be a random podcast here and there. We might do like a top 10 list, and then the next podcast could just be talking about the comic book world in general. And then a top 10 list. So we could just talk about what's going on kind of podcast and
what's hot, what's cool, different, what's new,
what people are reading, what's people cool, what's coming out and stuff like that too. So you have a lot of that information, obviously running a comic book store, what's coming out, next week, or actually when this comes out, which will be next week, Spawn Universe is coming out.
Ooh.
So I'm excited for Spawn, more stuff from Todd McFarlane. I'm excited for. So, but yeah, cool. Thanks, Paul.
Flight Mike. Thanks, Justin. As always, I appreciate it. I love doing these. It's great. And thanks to everybody who listens.
Soon. I'll see you next week, but we'll talk to you soon. And this has been great. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Justin.